put together? Who are they asking? How are they asking? Is it all internal questions that pop up? How are they targeting the individuals to ask them the questions that gave them the answers for those slides? And I just worry that those questions aren't going to be asked because the focus is on, wow, the Wall Street Journal has kind of done a douche move.
On this that you might have a point there, because their latest article, sorry if I got messy off, what was the headline yesterday from the Wall Street Journal? They had a new Facebook file, like the 7th in the series, which was, Facebook's working on apps for kids, that they think kids are the future, that the next generation is their next set of users. I try and get your head around how completely obvious that is, that Facebook thinks that their next group of users in the future, 5 years from now, are kids. Well, that's kind of obvious when you realize they have 3 billion users. Everyone over the age of 18 is a user. Kids are kind of their next users. Yeah, they would kind of have an interest in that. And as Facebook themselves said, given that TikTok and Snapchat are also understandably focused on kids because they've got all the adults, where else are they going to look? For dead people? Are they going to start marketing in fucking cemeteries? No, they're going to market. They're interested in kids because that's their next generation of users. And Facebook themselves said it would be newsworthy if we weren't interested in kids as our next generation of users. That would be a headline worthy story to write. If you could find that we somehow made a statement saying we're not interested in kids, that would indeed be very newsworthy. Facebook has no interest in kids would be a very interesting story. Obviously, they're interested in kids. You think they're going to start letting animals create fucking Facebook accounts for your dogs and your cats? Who else do you think? Where else do you think they're going to be looking?
The problem with this whole Instagram self-image of young girls issue is that anybody who's ever crafted a survey instrument and looked at the results, there's 3 or 4 different ways you can ask any given question, and you will get different findings depending upon how you word the question. And so is a congressional debate going to get to source truth about what the reality actually is, as opposed to how the questions are framed and how the results are spun? I don't think we're going to find ground truth through this exercise.
Amen, John. John just nailed it. John, thank you for sharing that kind of researcher scientist perspective, which is obviously true, and you literally just nailed it.
To me, is also, Tyler, that it's just that, like you said the other time, nobody is giving the benefit of the doubt to Facebook because they have had a lot of lying, I would say, or misinterpretation of a lot of things that they have been doing. And I think what Wall Street did was just in a series of articles, they just published a lot of the things that we all knew, right? Somebody even from having in a meeting and saying, look, we're not doing what we say we are doing. And they've done nothing about that. And I think most of us knew that already and gave examples. So I think even when they do something that might be okay, they just don't get the benefit of the doubt because of their history of not being reliable or telling the truth, right? That was the...
So 60 Minutes, as somebody said, is going to have the whistleblower on Sunday. Today's Thursday. And she's also going to appear October 5th before the Senate for a hearing. And now here, 60 Minutes just released a little snippet of their interview, which I have right here.
She left Facebook concerned with copies of thousands of pages of research. What don't they want you to know? The Facebook whistleblower.
So in the video that I just played, they show her from behind. She's a long blonde hair. They don't show her face in this video. But
she's a current employee then. She's still working there.
Yeah, we know she's a woman, a Caucasian.
They said long before leaving Facebook, right? She took it with her.
And didn't we also have the CFO sort of resigning, really?
Yeah.
Like, not fully, but sort of resigned.
Yep.
Exactly.
And so the other part I wanted to bring up, and I haven't had a chance, is when we think about the slides, I think it was 11 out of 12 were actually positive impacts that they believed Instagram was adding to, the teens. And I think Tyler, you've taught us so well. It's how you frame your language.
Well, that was
One
John.
third,
This is John's point. When you're doing a survey, you will get
but
different results
what I
based
mean,
on how you ask questions all
but
the
what I
time.
mean is even reporting the results. Like if they had said 2/3 don't experience this, we might not be having this conversation. But because you said 1/3 do experience this,
Right.
when you run the fractions, right, 1/3 is less than 2/3.
Right.
But if you had highlighted and said, well, 66% don't experience this, instead of
Right.
saying 1/3 do, it
Yeah.
would have totally reframed
Well, this is
the
the point.
discussion.
Is at the heart of this is corporate journalism is trying to take down big tech. That's what's going on. And I don't know to what degree Capitol Hill representatives understand this, like the tech entrepreneurs do, but we see it here all the time. I mean, Clubhouse just got thrown under the bus yesterday by The Verge on actually a very nearly identical scenario where it was all about the creators first program, and a journalist at The Verge wrote an article about how found some disgruntled creator first folks who made some comments, some of them off the record, about how Clubhouse failed to match them with sponsors. And it all comes down to a very niche technicality. And I want to run through this just one more time because this really boils me up here. Watch what they did, and this is perfectly exemplify a perfect example of what what corporate media is doing to tech at the moment. Here's what they're doing. Here's the article. Here's the creator first blog post. All they did was write a little blog post to announce the creator first accelerator program. That's the name of it. That's the title of the blog post at blog.clubhouse.com/creator first accelerator. It's in the URL, creator first accelerator. Do you know what an accelerator is? An accelerator is where another interchangeable name for this is incubator. This is a startup terminology. This is has a very precise meanings of you're taking a brand new baby idea and you're going to try and see if it works. And there's an incredibly high chance that it will not. That's what startup incubators and accelerators are. And so the creator first accelerator program, Clubhouse being a startup, the founders being part of startup culture, it's an important context for you to understand the importance of the adding the word accelerator to this whole title. The blog post title of the announcement of the program is the Creator First Accelerator Program, not the retirement, you're going to be famous program, not the we guarantee to get you sponsors program, not the we're going to make your dumbass famous program, right? Not that, it's the accelerator program. And watch, they say this perfectly in their own words in this blog post where it says, today we're thrilled to announce the Clubhouse Creator First, our inaugural accelerator program for creators. The goal, here it is in black and white in 12-point font. The goal is to help support and equip emerging creators with resources they need to bring their ideas and creativity to life, to start it, to get it fucking started, to add a little kindling, just get the little smoke going. Maybe we'll get a flame. We're not trying to burn the whole fucking house down. This isn't about you're going to be the next Howard Stern. This isn't you're going to be famous, baby. You made it, darling. This is we're just trying to get your little dream started with you here on Clubhouse. It says it in black and white. The goal, what is the goal? The goal, it says, is to help support and equip emerging creators, to help and equip. The goal is to help and equip emerging creators who don't even have shows yet with resources they need to bring their ideas and creativity to life. How are we going to do that? It says right here, helping you make your shows amazing with the following 7 things. There's 7 points. Here's the 7 points. Please make note of them. Number 1, the right equipment. If you need an iPhone, an iRig, AirPod Pros, we'll send them to you. So we're going to make sure you got the right equipment. Number 2, concept and creative development with our Clubhouse team. We're going to let you hook up with our people who took, marketing and communications classes, and they used to work at some good startups. We brought them in here. We're going to let you have access to them because you don't have access to, you're not a marketing guru. So, hey, you can talk to our marketing guru. There you go. Number 3, matching you to guests and talent for your shows and events. Great. That's nice. Number 4, design services for creative assets, because we got a designer in-house here. We pay this person a considerable salary. They got a little extra time. They already built our logo. You can have some cycle of meeting with them and then help you build a logo. That's kind of nice. Number 5, promotion within and off of Clubhouse. They definitely did that. Number 6, support in building your audience. That's nice. They'll probably tell you a few tricks on how to title your shows, what time of day to do them, perhaps optimal times of day to do it based on your audience that you might be targeting, whatnot. And lastly, providing a monthly stipend of cash, $5,000 a month for 3 months, $15,000 cash. And here's the important words that got totally misconstrued, and they wrote an entire takedown piece on this word, on this one sentence. We're providing a monthly stipend and matching you with brands so that you can turn your idea into a profitable creative endeavor. Now, does that say we're helping, we're matching you, right? Is there a guarantee? Is there some kind of promise? Should you as a creator expect that means you're going to get a sponsor? Do you read that as somebody who has an idea for a show and think, oh, I got a sponsor?
No,
done.
But all the brands, all the creators did.
Should they have?
Should they have? No, of course not.
Right.
I don't think, but they shouldn't have had a creator first program anyway. Clubhouse was too young to do that.
Right.
It didn't have enough of an audience itself.
Fair point.
And it couldn't come through on any of that.
Fair point.
And what it did was produce a bunch of entitled amateurs.
There you go. So my point is, the journalist is taking advantage of the fact that Clubhouse did what it said it was going to do. But the journalist is saying they didn't. The article says Clubhouse failed its promise to match brands and partners and sponsors for these shows. No,
Tyler, you have as much of a creator program as anyone. I mean, look at all the shows that have been spun out and supported by you.
I want to make this point. The main point I'm trying to make here is that journalists, the entire article is just a little twist, a little intentionally ignoring the full context. She knows the context because the context is painfully simple. A child understands the context. It's a one blog post, and the blog post is titled "The Creator First Accelerator Program," and we just talked through what it really is. We just went through the context together, and to write that Verge article, she had to intentionally, knowingly ignore the important context that we just went through to make her article actually happen. She's ignoring the point that it's an accelerator. An accelerator is not a promise to make you famous. An accelerator is not a promise of anything. By the way,
no words called sponsor. There's no word in that. What they've provided is saying they will get you a sponsor.
Right. And here's my point. So the fact that there were some creators who got a little thirsty and overexcited about what they might get from this program, to Francine's point, I guess they should have took one additional step and reminded these people that they selected and made sure they don't get the impression that they're going to be guaranteed sponsorships. Hey, just so you know, we're not guaranteeing you sponsorships. We're just going to try and match you with sponsors, which they did. They did try and match them with sponsors. They can't guarantee that a sponsor is going to sponsor you because your show didn't even exist when you applied to this program. The sponsors, you see what I'm saying?
Not only that,
Tyler, I was just going to say that, at the core of this, if you just really want to simplify it, you're also, at the end of the day, it's really could be as simple as, just like Dr. Just like Dr. Francine said, we're dealing with a culture of entitlement.
Yes.
Meets with, journalists looking for low hanging fruit, something that's gonna, get the bites, that's gonna get him from, Clubhouse, well, they have a lot of members, this will get attention. I mean, at the core, it's just something, it could be as simple as that. And, yes, it could turn into a bigger story. And yes, it could, affect negatively. But at the end of the day, I think just we're so used to seeing so many, it's sensationalism at its best.
So here's
It's
the
quick,
question.
it's easy.
Here's the
It's
question.
fast to talk about.
Creators have been talking about this all week, whether Clubhouse should have done more. I'm in and out of those rooms. And they are always talking about whether Clubhouse should have done more and whether they should leave Clubhouse to get on another platform. And of course, to me, this is crazy because how can you make a living from someone else's platform? That's always considered rule number one. Don't build on someone else's platform.
Right. Francine and
We
I
all learned that from Twitter.
Correct. Well, those of us who have been around the block, like Francine's been here from the beginning, y'all, and I came in not too long after, and this is a lesson that we, as the old school geeks, have learned. This is a mantra that we all know and have adopted. You kind of learn it in the it's not, you don't get it in kindergarten or even elementary or even middle school or even high school. It's like one of those things you learn a little later, which is don't build on someone. We've seen it happen too many times over the years in many different contexts, and it's a golden rule. You just don't do it. So, but all that aside, should the journalist then, is Clubhouse at fault, or is the creators who at fault ultimately in this? I would argue that the creators who misconstrued the whole concept here of this accelerator program, and any of those creators who misconstrued and felt like Clubhouse somehow tricked them by giving them $15,000 fucking dollars and an iPhone and a bunch of the access to their team. If that's Clubhouse tricking you, is that what they did? They tricked you by giving you $15,000 and an iPhone and AirPods and access to their their designers and their marketing people. Is that what Clubhouse did? They tricked you, is it? Or so who did wrong here? Clubhouse or the creators who felt, oh, I didn't get sponsors like they told me they were? No, go read the blog post again. There's only one. Everyone can read it. It's still up. It's still public. Nowhere on that thing did they promise you that. That's in your crazy little head that you thought they said that. They never said that. So now the tech journalist is taking the position that Clubhouse is in the wrong here. That Clubhouse didn't fulfill its promise. Or should the journalist write the article that the creators are entitled little brats? That's a little more of a reflection of the reality of the situation, which is if you go to journalism school, that's what they teach you what to do. So, but that's not unfortunately for the journalist, that ain't going to get you any clicks. You got to write the story that Clubhouse is at fault and jump on the bandwagon of the day that we're going to, write hit pieces on Clubhouse. And this is my point, is the Wall Street Journal, by writing articles yesterday, there was the latest Facebook file update was that holy shit, hold the phone, Tyrone. Facebook is focused on their future growth on kids, y'all. Holy sweet Jesus, as if they have any other option of going after dead people and dogs and cats as their future users, because they have everyone who's online is on Facebook. Who the hell do you think they're going to be focused on for their future growth?
I think I'm going to write a letter to The Verge. I never bother answering these articles, but The Verge usually does pretty good journalism, and this is really. I think I could make. Who wrote the article? I didn't read it.
I forget her name.
Ashley Carmen?
Yes, maybe? It is. Yeah, it's Ashley.
But Tyler, if I can give a bit of a different point of view. First of
Feel
all,
free.
uh, um, Clubhouse has nothing to worry about in this context of the congressional hearings. And they've
True.
got other problems. It's really more of a competitive things with Twitter Spaces and the
Yeah.
Spotify.
Yeah.
So it's not going to hurt them. It's a little bad PR. I think what's
I disagree. When you have
really
Vice and uh, 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 The Verge and Business Insiders writing one at the moment as well, because they've asked me to make a comment for it, and I have solid evidence that their intent is to write a hit piece because they're offering me to speak off the record, and I said I don't want to speak off the record, and I made a comment
yeah.
on the record, and then they said, well, would you like to say more off the record? And I said, no, I already told you I don't want to speak off the record. And then it turns out I spoke to somebody at Clubhouse who has already contacted this journalist and says, oh, we hear that you're writing an article about this, and she denies it and saying, no, we're not writing any article. And then after that correspondence, I then talked to the journalist. Oh, you're still want to comment for this piece? Oh, yes, absolutely. So we're writing this piece. So why are you lying to Clubhouse about writing an article? It's because you're writing a hit piece. So they're writing. So you've got 3 hit pieces all coming out simultaneously. That does impact the public perception. They want to paint the picture that Clubhouse is dying, is what they want to do, is defunct and it's over and bye bye, because it is legitimately a threat to them, because we're doing better journalism in this room than they do.
My sense is it won't hurt them that much in
I hope
the
it
long
doesn't.
run. First, this guy who follows, I forget his name on Twitter, the 3 different, he follows the Twitter Spaces, Clubhouse, so he sort of reports on these. He says, I think it was him, who said, anytime breaking news happens, nobody runs to Twitter Spaces or anywhere else. They go on to, I think it was the Britney thing. Everyone goes to Clubhouse to discuss it. So, all these positive things I think the perception was that it took a dip for a while and a lot of people left. But I think that's changing. So my sense is it's not a problem for a couple of Clubhouse in the long run.
What I
This
would
is
like to see,
different.
I get you.
This one more thing.
Here's what I would
This is
like.
different.
This phenomena of click-thirsty journalists ignoring the real context that we just went through on. And by the way, we just went through it on the Clubhouse Creator Program. And once you know the whole context, there's not much to argue about. She intentionally, knowingly misconstrued and ignored the full context in her post. So, by the way, Facebook's going to make the exact same argument in their Senate hearing today. That Wall Street Journal wrote that article, knowingly ignored the real context on that slide and all the other slides in the deck, and they're going to do that in front of the Senate, and the Senate's going to say, sorry for wasting your time.
I don't think so.
We'll find out.
We'll find out today. But my sense is that this is a different thing with Facebook. First of all, Facebook is a totally different animal, number one. And number two, I think the problem that Facebook faces right now is that it has a bipartisan critique from different points of view. So you have Warren on one side,
yeah,
who is focused on this issue, but you also have people in the Republican Party who are not happy, and perhaps on this issue of children, which they have a history of, going back to the Tipper Gore thing and all that, and even she participated in it, that they may come to a bipartisan agreement. And I read a headline today, I think it was Bloomberg, or it was yesterday, where what they're saying is that Congress is now focused on the kids issue as a result of this issue, of the Facebook issue. So I think it's more of a problem for Facebook. I don't think, Clubhouse, they're not even going to discuss anything like that in Congress.
No,
I think
that's
it's more
not
of
the
a
issue.
competitive. Yeah, and I think it's more of a competitive thing. And I think just Clubhouse just has to stick it through and win out over Twitter Spaces and and Spotify. See if they do.
But the point I'm also hearing from Tyler here is that the just sloppy journalism can make you lose your case, even if you have a case, right? It's just dumb, sloppy journalism that reduces, because people like Facebook and they're not stupid. Clubhouse is not stupid. Clubhouse is going to do its
That's a
thing
bit of
based on this.
activism. It's anti-tech activism.
Yeah, and
they have an agenda.
And dumb. So easily revealed, right? Just
but
like
journalists
not
should not have an agenda like this.
But this is like saying that journalists have an anti activist when they criticize the Trump administration, but then Biden's in power and they criticize him too. So they're going after the bad parts. They're not saying, hey, remember the whole Afghanistan thing? They didn't say, well, this is what Trump wanted to do. He wanted to withdraw. That's what Biden did. He messed up on the withdrawal,
but Maurice,
but he
may I? Because I used to live with a journalist, and people in my direct family are Emmy-winning journalists. So let me just explain one point. The Wall Street Journal article about this whole issue about Instagram and the body image of young ladies, that is, you've seen the slide, I'm assuming, where it's got the boys on the left, girls on the right, and the 12 points for each. And so there's basically 24 data points on this chart, on this graph. And the article's exclusively about one of the 24 data points on the graph, ignoring the other, 23 data points that counter their narrative that they're writing about. A journalist would say, we saw a slide at Facebook, and on the slide, there was 24 data points, and in 11 out of them, it turns out that young people feel that Instagram is actually a benefit to their emotional well-being on many fronts, but on the issue of body image, it's negative. That's what your professor at Northwestern told you to do. That's not what the Wall Street Journal did. The Wall Street Journal intentionally didn't mention the other data points they saw on that slide that are directly counter to the narrative they're trying to create. That is activism journalism.
So Tyler, can I just interrupt? Some for them live news.
Okay.
Actually, on CNBC right now, they're interviewing a Goldman Sachs analyst. So Cal, if you're watching, the guy's actually saying Facebook shares it's a bull case for Facebook. Goldman Sachs calls stock a buy. And I just listened to him as you were talking just now. He said some of the criticisms that have been leveled at Facebook is clearly showing it's been taken out of context. So almost to exactly what you're saying just now, that they kind of cherry picked only the negative stuff and therefore doing that. So, but Goldman Sachs is actually calling it.
But what these? I've heard. Is that a bank, Goldman Sachs? I've heard of these guys. Maybe they do some analysis on market movements and things, and now they're saying to buy Facebook because they realize exactly what I've just said, which is they've been.
They're making your call.
Yeah,
they literally make it, and I think you've been making it for the last few days. I think, or at least when this thing started.
I would call it an angle rather than activism. Right? Activism is like loaded with a bunch of other stuff.
Fair enough. Yeah, it has other political meanings. I concede that point. Yes.
I was going to say, is it the journalist or do you think it's the editor? Because sometimes journalists want to do things, but the editors direct them in other ways.
The great question, actually. And in this case, Jeff Horowitz, who, by the way, don't forget, when he started this Facebook file series, I even said, I hit the applause sound file, and I said, we even reached out to him and said, hey, let's get Jeff in here in Tech News Around the World, because love what you're doing with this leaked files stuff that you're doing, because they were only on their second or third one at that point. This is juicy. Wow, this is really fantastic. And the first three were quite damning. They did reveal some shady behaviors that Facebook didn't even try to counter. There's not much to counter. On the where it got interesting was the body image Instagram slide, where and now that's where they get called into the Senate hearing happening today. Let's see what happens. Goldman Sachs is saying buy the stock. I think they're coming to the same conclusion that I am, that the case has been made against them that unfairly, and then they'll have their comeuppance, and so it's an opportunity to buy it, because when the narrative gets corrected, that's the buy opportunity right there. So let's see. Like I said, hey, let's see.
Sorry, and it's live right now.
Sorry.
Senator.
Sorry, to answer your question. Because of the way Jeff is tweeting lately, it seems like Jeff has a lot of free reign with how he's running these Facebook files. It seems like in this particular case, he has he's not being controlled by an editor, for example, to answer your question in this case.
Yeah, and I wanted to say about this as well, like obviously like we know a bunch of writers in this room as well, and a lot of writers do it for their own volition and have their own opinions on particular parties, right? So, and especially because of the body image issue, it's like when you look at the minority, right? Because we're living in a minority rules type of era where the minority that is the loudest kind of wins, even if like they're not the party that has the most influence. So in this body image issue, I think someone said a couple of days ago, even like it was confirmation bias and stuff. So it was kind of what Jeff kind of was leaning towards and leaning into that, and really and truly by the end of this, no one's really going to remember what's going to happen with Facebook on the level of government, but they're going to remember the articles of Facebook being bad for girls, because that is the meme right now. So, yeah.
I
Tyler,
think
This
what's
is
important.
Heather. I just wanted to say this is Heather. Thank you for having me up, but I wanted to say that I feel as though everybody's like really focusing in on the Facebook and what they said about body image issues and whatnot, but the whole of social media is an issue for body image issues. I mean, same with any other type of media, like
There
magazines,
you go.
17
It's not
magazine, this,
unique
that,
to
and the
social
other.
media. It's
Um,
all media. Yes.
Correct. And you know, if anybody has watched The Social Dilemma, they've actually talked on this in regards to body image and the increased rates of suicide due to unrealistic body image, realities on social media. Just wanted to say that. This is Heather.
Okay. Thank you.
I was just actually going to confirm that, Tyler, and we talked about this, I think, maybe
Yeah.
a week ago or a couple of weeks ago. At the end of the day, I mean, we can go back to, what people should and watch. I mean, we can go back to the Elvis days where gyrating dancing was, bad for the kids, and, you're throwing them off course, and then it was the Beatles, and then it was, hip hop music, and then rock music coming in. So, at the end of the day, at some point, uh, people are going to have to also just counter that and say, yes, you cannot count on government or social media, on the tech companies to bring up your kids. It really, at the end of the day, it depends on the upbringing of
No,
how
No,
we
the
can't do
same,
that.
no.
if I can just finish, the same people that may have, I'm not saying that there aren't people out there having, issues with their body image. I mean, I remember reading 17 magazine when I was young, and you can counter and say the same thing back in the day before these tech companies. But at the end of the day, it's how your upbringing is, how your self-confidence is built at home, throughout your friends, your circle, how you're, the same people that are seeing the same exact footages or photos or videos. Some people are actually feeling more confident about their body if it's not perfect, because they're also being told that you're good as you are, and it's okay to be who you are. So there's two counters, there's two different points to that. But we can't only keep them accountable. I'm all up for everyone being accountable and the integrity of what people are being seen and heard, but at some point, your upbringing, who your circle is as a kid, your parents are teaching you your self-confidence about who you are. And if you're teaching, if you're being taught everything through social media, then there's a bigger issue to speak here. Again, I'm not saying that they're not responsible in certain things, absolutely, but you can't police every single thing. Certain things has to start from home.
Hi, this is Chetna. I think that we've got the female body image, and the body image thing has been going on for years. It is the fact that, okay, social has changed it slightly, but when you go back as a woman of colour, it's only now that I'm seeing people who look like me. So, we've got an industry around skin bleaching, we've got plastic surgery, all these things were there before. They were all there before because of the portrayed women historically. It has just shifted. And I think there's two arguments to it, because I think that there's the morphing of the body through the apps, the filters, and people portraying their lives in a certain way and morphing their bodies. And then you've got, on the other hand, the fact that we do see people who look like us. And so, somebody mentioned earlier about cellulite or being overweight or aging or letting your hair grow gray, or, just having different bodies and different colours and different backgrounds. So I think that there are two sides to this story, for kids and for people in general. I know it's applying to men and young boys as well. So that's my views. But it's been there before. I think that through time, we've had ideal types. Yeah. And people have tried to aspire to that.
All right. The good news is TikTok has got your permission, if you're a TikTok user, to use your face for their purposes in the future. So in the future, when you see advertisements, it won't be unhealthy anorexic models. It will be you selling shit to yourself in TikTok. And it'll be your... So we don't have to worry. This is the crazy part about the coming metaverse and AR and VR and the future of social media, is because in the future, like for example, you mentioned the representation of any minority group you want to imagine. This is going to be truly fantastic, because in print magazines they have to make a tough decision as to should the character in the advertisement or in the story be this race or this what's the word I'm looking for, gender or whatever. And in the fully digital realm that we're stepping into, they don't have to. They can match it to the person the viewer. So if you're your demographic of age and race and gender, every person in every advert you're ever going to see is going to be whatever you want it to be. So we're not going to have this this issue of representation in media, because it can be personalized digitally going forward.
Does anyone else find this hilarious? Or is it just me?
I do a little bit.
Well, it is what it is, because that's what they're gonna personalize the person, the ad to the viewer. So because they know that's what's they're gonna tailor it based on what is gonna get the more clicks. So if they're gonna A/B test it, and they're gonna find out for Evan, is Evan more likely to click on this ad if it's his mom who's selling him the product in the ad, or himself who's selling himself the product in the ad, or some X gender or X race or X age or X...
Yeah, they do that on Netflix even right now on a minor level, where it's like the character that you probably relate most to based on the data on your phone, they'll put on the cover of the Netflix show so that you can more likely click it and stuff like that. Yep. It successfully worked for me like a couple of times, to be fair.
So next up, BBC says researchers, a flaw in Apple Pay lets attackers make a Visa payment with a locked iPhone in express transit mode. Apple calls it a concern with a Visa system. Large unauthorized contactless payments can be made on a locked iPhones by exploiting how Apple Pay feature is designed. Sounds like they'll get it fixed very shortly. The next one's Bloomberg. Employees at 11 video game companies say their teams have a 4K Switch developer kit. But sources say a 4K Nintendo console won't go on sale until late 2022. Let me unpack this for you. Bloomberg has just realized what everyone in the game industry has known since video games started, which is hardware manufacturers give demo hardware to the game studios to develop their games for that new hardware. So Nintendo has this thing called the 4K Switch that's coming out in 2022. They've already given out demo versions of that hardware to 11 video game companies to build their games for it, so that when the hardware comes out, there's already games for it, because nobody's going to buy hardware that has no games for it. So let's read this headline again and realize how stupid this journalist is, that they just realized that this thing has been going on for, I don't know, since the Industrial Revolution. Bloomberg says employees at 11 video game companies say their teams have 4K Switch demo units. But sources say the 4K Nintendo Switch console is not coming out until 2022. What an absolute mystery. Holy smokes, where's Sherlock Holmes? How are we going to crack this case, Sherlock? Because previously, when they give these demo units out, it's done under NDAs. They're not allowed to say they have them. How do you think Bloomberg found out that these 11 video game companies had it? Do you think these video game companies all called Bloomberg and said, "Hey, Bloomberg, we've got this 4K Switch. Ring, 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 ring. Hey, we got one too. Ring, 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 ring. Hey, Bloomberg, yeah, we got one too." Or do you think Bloomberg's asking all the game companies, "Hey, game company, do you have one of those 4K Switches?" And they're like, "Yeah, we got one. So what?" And then they asked all the video game companies they could, and it turns out they all have it. Holy smokies, all the video... This breaking news, video games company have a piece of hardware that's not coming out until next year. In other news, the grass is green and the fucking sky is blue. More at 5 o'clock. Bloomberg, what the fuck are you doing?
I'm loving this.
You make the
Do me
news
this.
quite enjoyable, Tyler. It's
Love
hilarious.
it. Love it.
Genuinely, I would not have read this article this way. It's hilarious.
At least 11 companies, including Zynga, have tools from Nintendo to make 4K Switch games. Many people were surprised to learn. No, the best part's the next line. Many people were surprised to learn. You mean you and your other idiot journalists at the water cooler having lunch at fucking El Pollo Loco? Who's surprised to learn?
I was doing 72 and 10, 92 balls.
As a Subway shop, I'm offended by that last plug, Tyler.
Steph Curry with the Switch.
Become the in-house journalism defender, even though I've got a lot of critiques about it. And let me tell you quickly that my sense is that since this is happening more and more, is precisely because of tech. That it's not malicious in the sense of they want to take down tech, but they feel like they've been structured almost into an environment that technology has created. If you look at the New York Times, it now has a lot of live, it's almost streaming. I mean, I don't know why they don't have their own TikTok internally. And it's streaming and it gives you updates. That's something that they didn't used to do. And I'm going to try to research it to see when it started. And so what's happening is they're trying to get out this quickly, and everyone is moving, much faster. And so what they're doing is it's almost like they're transforming articles into TikTok's posts, but with a little bit more context. It's not the context that you used to have. If you ever remember, if you're old enough to remember the New York Times, which were really long articles, they cut down on those articles.
So check the
here. Can I give this a thought right quick? Yeah. Just after what Marie said.
Yeah, hold on.
You had to read all the way to the end in order to, but it was really good at giving you context. And I learned a lot of my history, a lot of world history, a lot of things by reading the New York Times as a kid in paper form, which I used to help deliver. And it was excellent.
Okay.
Hang on.
Hold on. You're going off the rails here. So hold on. Let me read this article. It's a very short article. It says, many people are surprised to learn Nintendo's new video game console is missing a common feature of rival systems, support for high fidelity, 4K graphics. Perhaps most perplexed were the numerous developers who were working on 4K games using a software toolkit provided by Nintendo. Employees at 11 game companies said their teams were in possession of Nintendo's 4K development kit for the Switch. The company spanned the globe, ranging from large publishers to small studios, and including at least one that has never made a console game before, Zynga, according to the employees who asked not to be identified because because they weren't authorized to discuss their projects publicly. Exactly. They make them sign NDAs. That's why they're not telling you. Are you just, hang on, Bloomberg, are you just learning about the concept of an NDA and that game developers develop stuff before they release it? Is that what you're figuring out right now? That game developers develop stuff for products like the Switch, like the iPhone. Like there are people right now.
These developers aren't real geeks. They really have no real tech background despite covering tech. And because they're immersed in it, they kind of pick up all the buzzwords and lingo, but they don't really get it. They never wrote a line of code or
The
really
journalists, you
did
mean?
anything.
Yeah.
Yeah, the journalists,
Right.
exactly.
So yes, they're exactly. It's embarrassing. Takahashi Mochizuki, that's actually the person's name. It's a Japanese name. Takasan, this is a little embarrassing. I don't know how to break this to you. Yes, absolutely. Developers get access to the software platforms and the hardware in advance to make their products for the upcoming new platforms. So the iPhone 13, when the iPhone 13 launches, and then they bring out somebody who made a game specifically to take advantage of the new hardware and the new graphics processor in the iPhone 13, and they stand on stage next to Tim Cook, and Tim Cook says, so we put in the new A15 Bionic chip in the new iPhone 13, and it looks amazing, and to show it off, here's so-and-so from some video game company, as they've done every year since 2007, when the first iPhone came out. Every year they do this in their iPhone keynote speech, and they bring out a game developer to show how they just, and the game developer says, with this new the new iPhone, the game processor so good. Look how we were able to add all of this new shading and rendering. And right, have you not all seen that 100 times? Yes, you have. If you watch the Apple annual events where they launch the new iPhones, there's always a game developer who comes out who speaks all gushingly about how the new processor makes it possible to add all this new shading and more realistic features and graphics, right? Every year without fail. How did they do that? How wait a minute. Huh? How did you as a developer build for this chip that just launched 10 minutes ago? Because they got an advance. They made this little crazy deal. They signed a piece of paper that said, shh, don't tell anybody. We're going to give you access to the device in advance. Don't tell Bloomberg. This is what happens, Bloomberg. So Takahashi Mochizuki-san, yes, this has been going on for a very long time. So the journalists are just figuring out what all the
sounds like since before he was born, to be fair.
Okay, so next one is Massachusetts-based company called Catalog, which claims to be developing a DNA-based computing platform. That's wild. Raises $35 million, bringing the total of funding to $45 million. And this is a new thing that we're starting to hear about, and I'm curious what John might have heard.
Like what does that mean? Like a DNA based computing?
Yeah,
I mean, I've heard of like DNA storage.
Yes, me too.
I don't get computing.
Here we go. Boston, Massachusetts company Catalog, developing what it claims is the world's first DNA computer, today announced it has raised $35 million. The company says it has plans to use the capital to launch its chemical-based computing platform by next year, where data management and computation occur through the manipulation of synthetic DNA. I can't wait for the all of the anti-vax people to get their heads around this one. Because they're turning us into robot computers, by the way, Evan.
It's Matrix. We saw it on the news.
Yeah. Turns out you're the computer. As conversations continue on the electricity traditional computing requires to process large volumes of data. As conversations continue about all of the electricity that traditional computing requires to process large volumes of data, interest in chemical-based DNA computing systems is gaining momentum. While DNA computers tend to have slow processing speeds and produce answers that can be difficult to analyze, they can make a high amount of parallel computations owing to the millions to billions of molecules within that within that interact with each other simultaneously. Here's the quote: DNA-based computing means everything happens at a chemical level where traditional boundaries between storage, memory, and computation are blurred and often non-existent. This allows for levels of parallelism previously unimaginable while spending far less energy than previously possible, says the co-founder and CEO. DNA computing is an emerging branch of computation that leverages DNA, biochemistry, and molecular hardware instead of traditional electronics. University of Southern California kickstarted the field in 1994 when he demonstrated a proof of concept use of DNA as a form of computing hardware. In 1995, the idea for DNA-based memory, as you said, storage, was originated by Eric Baum, who hypothesized that the vast amounts of data could be stored in a tiny amount of DNA due to the ultra-high density. Traditional computers use a series of logic gates, ones and zeros, a binary switch essentially, made up of transistors, usually, that transforms different data inputs into outputs. But with DNA, molecules can be triggered to bind with each other to create a circuit of logic gates in test tubes. Catalog was founded in 2016 by two MIT scientists with the goal of developing a commercially viable product for DNA-based storage, which Park claims is up to 1 million times more dense than today's current storage technologies. In working over the past year with companies in IT, media, and entertainment, and energy, the company Catalog, their research scientists developed an automated system for DNA storage, which they assert is the first not confined to wet lab chemistry. A hard drive's typical storage ratio is about 30 million gigabytes per cubic meter. Catalog's method can store 600 billion gigabytes in the same volume. So what a good math whiz can calculate what is the percentage increase from 30 million to 600 billion?
It's because we go from binary to quaternary, right? So we're going 8 times up.
Right. It's no longer, you're not doing the math in ones and zeros. You're doing it because there's 4 pairs. So the company developed an encoding scheme and combinatorial approach that allows for what it claims are dramatic cost reductions in throughput, making DNA-based storage and computation economically viable. So about the potential, it says the potential applications of DNA computers span security, cryptography, memories, disks, and robotics. Researchers have also shown in early stage work how DNA computers might be used for extremely accurate detection of certain cancers. Here's the quote. Catalog, the company, has discovered broad applications of our platform across industry sectors, as well as nearly universal demand for what DNA-based computing promises among heavy data users. Early use cases that we are able to speak about at the moment include digital sign processing, such as seismic processing in the energy sector, and database comparisons, such as fraud protection and identity management in the financial industry.
I'm just a marketing guy, but when they come to market, they should build a thing like a brain in a jar, that's the physical computer. It's just this fleshy brain in a jar, like the Steve Martin movie. That would be awesome.
It's there's a couple interesting little bits here as well. Non-traditional approaches will enable the next rebound of innovation and efficiency. All human knowledge could be stored in a small amount of synthetic DNA. That's a mind-bending idea. That all the data that we've created thus far could be stored in a fucking in a
send that into space. We could send that into Alpha Centauri.
Yeah, the next part says Catalog isn't, of course, the only team investigating DNA computer technologies. A partnership between IBM and Caltech was established, aimed at putting DNA chips into production, and California Institute of Technology group is working on manufacturing of nucleic acid-based integrated circuits that can compute whole square roots. Beyond this, last year, Microsoft, Twist Bioscience, Illumina, and Western Digital formed the DNA Storage Alliance, of which Catalog is also a part.
John's here, but I think one strand of DNA can hold several petabytes of information.
In the size of, that's undetected, it's invisibly small, yeah. So it's, mind-blowing. What else?
Share, and
Oh,
probably my favorite articles, because it really shows how the convergence of genetics, um, machine learning, to accelerate um, the processing of genomic data can really help grow two different marketplaces, technology, high tech and biotech together. And it's a really interesting trend to watch. And, you know, the first time they were doing DNA storage, this was at least half a decade ago. I remember thinking how revolutionary that is. Now it's becoming more and more commercially viable, so that's exciting.
215 petabytes per gram of data is in DNA. That's a mind-blowing number.
that's amazing.
Yeah,
Like,
one of my friends worked with George Church on this, and just for fun, they used DNA to store all the information in a book titled Biomimicry.
I love the irony.
Yes.
Visually impaired users say that iOS 15 appears to have removed call, email, and voicemail Siri features they rely on. With the recent release of Apple's iOS 15, it appears to have made some changes to Siri functionality that have removed features relied on by low vision and blind iPhone users. Chinese AR company Nreal unveils the Nreal Air, consumer glasses with micro OLED displays, hot shit right there, and iOS compatibility. Shipping in December. They did it. They're the first ones out ever since Google Glass. Here it comes. I got to tweet this out right now. This is some hot shit right here. You want your AR glasses? Here they are. The question is, how good are they? People are saying they're good. I just tweeted it. Augmented reality company Nreal is launching a cheaper, iOS-compatible, more compact version of its smart glasses, the new Nreal Air. Glasses are supposed to ship starting in December across Japan, China, South Korea. Cheryl, where'd Cheryl go? The price isn't set, but Nreal says they'll cost a fraction of the price of its earlier Nreal Light glasses, which started selling for around $600. Based on Nreal's description, the new Nreal Air glasses have some core similarities to the Nreal Light glasses, but are designed to look like relatively normal sunglasses and pitched as an ideal for projecting a virtual big screen display in front of your eyes. They're both
There
using
was a little thing called Magic Leap that wasn't too much of a success between Google Glass, so I'll
Yep.
believe it when I see it. But yeah,
They're both using micro OLED displays for their augmented reality optics and are powered by a phone rather than a tether cable. And they're both aimed at consumers rather than businesses, researchers, or the military. But Nreal Air glasses have a different feature set than their predecessors, similar to Microsoft HoloLens or Magic Leap. The original Nreal Light glasses could map physical space around you with a set of outward-facing cameras. Nreal Air glasses, by contrast, don't have any outward-facing cameras. They can display video and phone apps, but they can't see what's around you, which means you don't have the spatial awareness and the hand tracking options the Nreal Light does. You'll control them with a smartphone app, an option that's only available on the Light glasses. The upside of the Nreal Air glasses are ironically much lighter than the Light glasses at 77 grams instead of 106 grams. They don't have the slightly bug-eyed look the Light glasses do. They look like normal glasses. So I just tweeted that out. Real
But
AR.
Snapchat had really cool looking glasses too, and that didn't do anything. So I really feel as though these glasses are just kind of a waste, in my opinion.
They need more apps.
yes, it's just a frontier, isn't it? It's like the beta version, but they're gonna be really a big deal in like 10 years at least.
It's going to take time for startups feel that there's money to be made by making apps on this platform, and it's a chicken and an egg dance. The
Yeah, it's
consumers
like
Apple really needs to step
because
up and deliver on the glass
that
side and show what can be
that's
done. But
yeah,
this is
everyone's holding their breath.
this is why Apple is always the game changer, because when Apple says it's time to do it, all the developers jump in. There's no longer a risk. Now it goes from being a risk to being an early developer for AR glasses to being a land rush. You're guaranteed. There's this huge app store. You want to be first developer in the app store with an app for their new glasses, because the consumer doesn't see it as a risk either. They know there's going to be, Apple has that ability to bring the consumer and the developers together on their platform. No one else is really able to do that. So the whole market has to wait for Apple to make their move.
Like looking at just like the sound and then visual aspect, being able to take images and listen to audio at the same time, and just the way that we wear glasses as well is like an interesting thing, right? Trying to put something on in and around your head and still listen to it at the same time. So there's a couple other things, like I know some companies that work with bone conduction, but it's still on the like cutting edge of that, and this has been like 4 years running now. Well, actually it's 2021, so 5 years running now. And there's the other point of even UX designers that need to understand AI as well as machine learning, in terms of being able to put an amount of data or even an amount of storage inside a headset. So then we have to talk about the correspondence between using your phone and a headset at the same time, or even having an Apple Watch and your headset at the same time. So Apple's the only place with the bandwidth for that, but at the same time, you can have a startup that's working on all of these things at once, or a bundle of startups working on these things and just put them together. But it's the right minds and places and times that need to be working with one another to create this next level of app and AR visual, like visual and VR. So yeah.
So Google
Yeah, and
Maps.
they always start. Sorry,
Go ahead.
they always start. We're going to go after the consumer, and then soon realize they have to pivot to the enterprise because the damn things cost like $2,000. So it's
Yeah,
going to be really hard for them to get to consumer price points.
yeah, like when just one of the ideas, right? Because this has been like a big talking point for me for the past like 5 years, where it's like having energy being conducted by sweat, or even like when we just had that DNA one, where it's like you can store an excessive amount of data in a small tiny space that's physical, right? So we need to be able to put all of those things into one space, such as glasses or a phone or a watch, and then that's when it becomes commercially viable, because you can make it at a large amount and stuff like that. So it's just going to take a little bit of time, but the adoption rate will be quick once it happens.
Okay, here we go. The next one is all about Google Maps adds wildfire info layer, rolling out to Android this week and iOS and desktop in October. It's a tool so you can have a layer on your maps. You can see all the fires, so when you ask the Google Maps to route your directions, to the shopping mall, it can say, oh, you don't want to go through that fire. You want to go around that, because it's fire season, 2021, climate change. It's the hot new thing. You gotta avoid all the fires. If that's not a sign of that we're at the beginning of the end, I don't know what is. The next one is that Twitch rolls out the option for Twitch streamers to take control and avoid all of these crazy hate, what do they call them? Hate raiders, who jump into their Twitch streams and start spouting nonsense and racist crap and all kinds of crazy shit, mentally tormenting Twitch streamers. They're now going to be the streamers can now require that the people who chat in their rooms have to verify themselves with a phone number verification or an email verification to prove that they're not a bot. Because some real sinister jackass is making chat bots that go into Twitch streamers' rooms and spouting all kinds of crazy racist hatred bullshit. And so Twitch figured out a solution. Make those make people who chat on certain channels identify that they're not bots by proving they have an actual working email address or phone number. And so now you, as a Twitch streamer, can choose if you want to force people who chat in your room to be verified or not. There you go. Problem solved. No more hate raids. Next, Apple has quietly begun allowing users to rate and review its built-in iPhone apps in the App Store. So you can now rate the default weather app or clock app or calendar app, which all suck. So you can now tell Apple that your apps suck and give them 1-star reviews, which everyone's doing. It's kind of like the thing. Everyone's rating all the default Apple apps with 1-star reviews today. So, Ethereum developer Virgil Griffith pleads guilty, violating U.S. sanctions law following a crypto and blockchain presentation that he gave in North Korea, which he should not have done. The best thing he could do is claim that he was unaware, that he doesn't understand geopolitics at all. He didn't know Korea was under sanctions. I had no idea that speaking in Korea was against the law. Yeah, you got to claim stupidity, because that is very much against the law, and he knows it, and that's why he's pleading guilty. So we'll see what happens. Facebook announced.
So he'd be effectively teaching the North Koreans how to work in the underground economy, right?
Correct, precisely. Yeah. and the U.S. is, well, I mean, it's possible that he wasn't totally aware. I mean,
no, that's fair. That's fair.
It's possible. But anyway, the next one is from TechCrunch. Facebook announces updates to Facebook Messenger, including group chats between Instagram and Messenger contacts. So they're really now continuing to merge the chat functionality between Instagram and Facebook Messenger, so you don't have to choose one or the other. You can have group chats going between both, so you don't have to choose where your friends are on which of those apps and whatnot. And the next one talks about how crypto transaction volume in Europe has reached $1 trillion in the past year, which is now 25% of global crypto activity. Next, the US and the EU will cooperate across various tech areas, including AI, semiconductors, and supply chain security, to ensure sensitive technologies are not misused, which they have to do. Because if you make separate rules for the EU and the US, this just becomes a huge cluster F for everybody. So this is actually very good news in a way. And it will prevent one of them from having an asymmetrical advantage over the other. Actually, who really benefits from this is the UK, because the UK is no longer part of the EU. And the UK can make very friendly policies to AI. And in fact, they are doing exactly that. That was one of the headlines last week. The UK itself said, we want to be the AI artificial intelligence hub, which they have DeepMind, one of the best teams in the world. They have Cambridge. They have a lot of the best AI stuff is already happening in the UK, and they can really double down on that. They really could become the AI hotspot, because if the US and the EU do what the EU's already saying it will do, the EU is saying, we're going to regulate the shit out of AI. We're going to ban AI. There was a whole big call for banning AIs that, are have that don't help humanity or whatever, and they're going to overregulate it, and then that's going to force all the AI folks who don't want to play games with the UN and the EU. My God, that's the last thing they want to do. So the UK is going to be like, come on over here. You can innovate all you want over here. We've got nice stout beers over here. We've got, kidney pies over here. We've got really shitty weather over here, so you can focus on your work. Come on over here. Why don't you develop all that AI over here? Let's make the UK
chicken korma.
All of it.
The number one dish is the chicken curry. So yeah, we've got it all.
So this could be great for the UK, but but the US and EU overall, it's great. I wonder if they'll kind of cajole the UK to kind of participate in this as well. But I bet the UK doesn't want to be part of it. I think the UK stands to really benefit by being the really friendly place for AI development. And the next one is that Indian social commerce startup called, and the key word there's social commerce, called Meesho, raises just a little amount, $570 million, more than doubling its valuation, where it now has a valuation of $5 billion, which is double where it was 6 months ago. So they've increased the company's value from 2.5 billion to 5 billion in 6 months, increasing 2.5 billion in 6 months. How much is that per day? 6 times 12 is what? 72. So out of 72 days, they made $2.5 billion. Good if someone could do that math. And that's a whole lot of millions per day that company's growing. And that's because they're social commerce, like we talked about at the beginning. TikTok selling shit. Remember that? We started at the beginning. TikTok, you're going to sell shit on TikTok and make a store. That's social commerce. That's what this company is doing in India. And now you know how big social commerce and selling all that shit on TikTok is going to be. That this company's doubled its valuation in 6 months from 2.5 billion to 5 billion. And they're raising 570 more. And they'll double again in the next 12 months. And this will become one of the biggest companies anywhere, a social commerce platform in India. Delhi-based electric ride-hailing and charging startup BlueSmart raises $25 million to expand its network to 5 new Indian cities. India's just the hot spot, y'all. They got 1 billion English-speaking democratic citizens. What's not to love? My goodness, what an amazing tech market India is blossoming into. You're going to start seeing Western entrepreneurs and European entrepreneurs being like, why am I messing with Germany? Why am I messing with France? India's got 1 billion freaking people, everybody. A freaking B. You can go make a unicorn. Of course you're going to become a unicorn down there. They're popping off unicorns, they've set the record in 2021. That's the fastest accumulation of unicorns in the history of tech. It's just totally unbelievable. Modular phone maker Fairphone, which uses ethically sourced materials, announces the Fairphone 4 with a 6.3-inch display, 5G, and up to 256 gigabytes, starting at €579. The Fairphone 4's software support should stretch until 2025. Fairphone, the manufacturer, focused on making it easy for you to buy a phone that is made ethically, essentially. They have a really unique value proposition here. The manufacturer focused on making easy to repair smartphones. So from the start, they want you to be able to replace your screen and the battery and the camera and upgrade the camera next year. Oh, you want a better camera? You don't have to buy a new phone. Upgrade the camera module. You want a bigger battery? Upgrade the battery module. You want a better screen? Upgrade the screen module. Pretty clever, eh? You don't got to buy a new phone every year. Some aspect of the phone. By the way, there's a new screen available. You want to buy it? Buy it. There's a new camera available. You want to buy it? Buy it. You want a wider lens? You want this lens? You want what kind of battery? You want a faster charging battery? You want a bigger overall storage battery? What do you want? We got it all. Assemble your own phone. Remember when people started making their own computers in their houses? It was kind of a big thing. Why
And all
isn't
these cool phone concepts really don't go anywhere. The alternative phones, nothing can quite break through the Apple, Samsung, Google,
however,
wasn't it the Project Era? That was the whole point, right? The Google's Project Era.
However, if Fairphones are designed to be incredibly simple to repair and upgrade, and incredibly cheap to repair and upgrade. And so the problem, one of the key weaknesses of the iPhone approach is if something goes wrong, it's not always easy to fix. I'm speaking from firsthand experience where it could cost me a couple days to go fix an iPhone if something happens, heaven forbid. And the reports are already out for the iPhone 13. If you try to upgrade the screen at somewhere other than an Apple store, your Face ID system stops working, which is an absolute pain in the ass. It actually happened to me on my iPhone 12. And you have to enter your password every time you open your phone or not have a password on your phone. It's quite a significant annoyance. So this has some potential. I mean, just as I said about the everyone building their own computers. Once people started building their, by the way, doing the phone is far easier than your desktop computer that people were doing back in the 90s. So I believe this has some real interesting potential. Fairphone.
And most of the stuff is on the cloud anyways, right? It's just the interface that you're actually changing. It's just the SIM card, or not even the eSIM card anymore. It's eSIM. And all you need is a battery, a screen, and that's it.
So a new company called Empathy, an AI-based digital assistant that helps families organize their affairs after death, raises $30 million. That's clever. And the next one says, Spotify says podcast creators using its Anchor service can add interactive polls and Q&As to their programs. So while you're listening, this is genius, by the way. This is truly fucking fantastic. And no, I have no official affiliation with Spotify or Anchor. Spotify bought Anchor. Anchor is one of the best fucking things to ever happen. Anchor, it's truly remarkable what this app does. If you want to start a podcast, back in the day, it was a severe pain in the ass. You would have to tell Apple, I want to make a podcast. You'd have to do this crazy song and dance. And then you'd have to go to Google and say, hey, Google, I want to start a podcast. And you'd have to choose which platform you want to be on and then submit all of the bullshit. And it was a real pain in the ass. Anchor comes along and says, no, just tell us one time, give us your logo, give us the name, and give us the description. We'll take care of the rest. Come back in a week, and all the podcasts will be working on all the different platforms. And better yet, when you have an episode, just give it to us. We'll distribute it to all of them magically. Just tell us the title and the description. We'll take care of the rest. Fantastic. Oh, and by the way, here's all your data from all of those different podcasting platforms all in one neat little place. Holy shit, that's magic. And how much does that cost? Fucking nothing. Free. Oh, would you like to put some ads in your podcasts? We could do that for you. Free money, everybody. Holy shit, I love this app. This is like the best thing ever. Spotify bought it. Now you know why. And now, when you're uploading your new episodes, I noticed it yesterday inside Anchor, they now say, hey, would you like to, while the podcast is playing, while they're listening to it, we can ask them a question. And you could do it verbally also, but now you have the ability to influence the screen on the device to ask a poll question, which you could also correspondingly add some audio to and say, okay, so right now we're going to do a little poll right here. Okay, at minute 52 here into the podcast, so it's time for another poll. All right, everybody, tell us how you feel about this or that. And then you answer the question. You have 4 choices or 5 choices, or whatever the podcast creator decides to make. And then you see the poll results of the other people who have participated in the poll while you're listening to the podcast asymmetrically, separate from whenever the other people are listening. It's truly genius. It's
So you have interactive
correct.
Play.
You nailed it. It's crazy. Interactive.
SoundCloud.
The key word is podcasts are now interactive. That's the genius bit of it.
Yeah, and like even when people have conversations and the listener is listening in and they're like, oh no, you forgot about this one, they can actually do a poll while listening, and then they will go into the app obviously and then click the poll and then go off the app. So it's like you're having more playtime on Spotify, but just as well you're able to get your own data and extra data on top of that as well. But yeah, that's nuts. That's a very powerful position.
Yeah, super crazy cool.
Is that like having a live kind of feedback, or just you have the metrics that you can have a look at and
right.
just adjust your
it's all of
as
that.
you go?
Well,
it's okay. All of that.
When you as the podcast creator look in your account, your Anchor account in your analytics, they will now show the results of the polls. Of course, yeah. So the next one up is Financial Times. Shares of London-listed company AlphaWave, which develops chips with fast data flows, drops up to 50% after the Financial Times report highlighted close links to key contract partners. Okay. Bloomberg says they have sources that Apple's corporate treasurer, Gary Wipfler, has retired after 35 years at the company. Gary steps down as the VP executive, served under several CEOs. Big whoop. TechCrunch says London-based ReachDesk, which offers tools for sending and managing B2B gifts, raises $45 million. Alloy, which offers identity verification service for the financial services industry, raises $100 million at a $1.35 billion valuation. Yet another identity verification company becoming a unicorn, as predicted. Here it comes. Deliveroo partners with UK supermarket Morrisons to launch rapid delivery service, initially in selected London areas with the goal of 10 to 15-minute deliveries. Here we go. My goodness, is that...
Well, not to cut you off, Tyler, but yeah, people have always asked the question, will there ever be a need to have a brick and mortar today? And I feel like this answers the question. You do need those locations to be able to deliver physically and fast. So, and Morrison's is quite big. It's not the biggest, obviously, but Walmart has Asda and stuff like that. So there's obviously different positions to play, but yeah, having a brick and mortar with a delivery, and then Amazon having all the corner shops and Hermes as well. So yeah, it makes sense. It makes sense.
Yes and no, because it's interesting to look at what's happening with Instacart in the US, where they were using Whole Foods and other supermarkets, and they had humans running in, fulfilling the orders, as Gorillas does today as well. And then they try and deliver it within 10, 15, 20 minutes. It turns out those humans, some of them get a little cranky. Some of them don't have quite the cardio they used to. And they get laid off. And then they get angry and talk to journalists. And this billionaire company, he's making $1 billion a week, and he just fired my ass. And it was so unfair. He asked me to do, I don't get paid. I get the paid same amount if I'm doing 3 orders or 1 order, and it's not fair, and it's not fair, and it's not fair, and it's not fair. And I should have done homework when my parents told me to, and now I don't have any choices in life. I got to do this shit, and I just got fired. So I'm angry, and I'm telling you, the journalist. And so the journalist writes these hit pieces on Gorillas that we've read here. Even though Gorillas just raised $1 billion at a $3 billion valuation, the company's a year fucking old, and it's created a $3 billion company that just raised $1 billion from a competitor, no less. They didn't just raise it from ordinary investors. They raised the money from a competitor. That's how fucking solid that deal is. The competitor knows. Not only is it a competitor, it's a competitor in the same market. They're both based in Germany. They're both based in Berlin, actually. And they're both delivery companies. So it was Delivery Hero invested in Gorillas in Berlin. So Delivery Heroes knows how good Gorilla's doing and how fast it's growing, and they wanted to invest in their competitor. That's how fast they're growing. So these 10-minute, 20-minute instant delivery ones, in the case of America with Instacart, who predate Gorillas and Deliveroo, is now switching from these humans who tend to be a little cranky and tend to go to the press. They're switching over to, as we speak, automated fulfillment centers, because the robots can fulfill the orders way faster than a human can, like way faster. Like instead of 3 minutes to fill the order, it's like 30 seconds. So that saves you 3 more minutes. So these robots zoom around this, chessboard looking grid of cubes full of products, and they zoom around on these tracks, and they grab all the shit and they throw it in a bag, and then here you go. Because there's a queue of delivery people waiting for the robot to hand the bag that it sorted and picked, which it can do way, 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 way faster when it's not a brick and mortar store, when it's like a specialized automated fulfillment center. So
yeah, genuinely, yeah. I see those corner stores picking up like a van full of drones and being able to go around with the drones and use that infrastructure method, other than the automated one that you're speaking of as well.
Yeah.
So yeah,
Well,
there's like multiple delivery systems
yes.
over
Well,
there.
the human delivery person, we've already seen Meituan, who's the leader of instant delivery in China, and they've been doing it longer than anybody. Meituan's one of the biggest companies in the world. This is not a startup anymore. This is like fucking Amazon. Meituan has now, we tweeted it out yesterday, this miniature car. It looks like a car for a 10-year-old child. It looks like a big toy. And it looks like a miniature little bus. And it's autonomous. It can drive itself. It can store stuff in it. And it can go it can drive on a sidewalk. Zoom right up to your front door. Beep, beep. I'm here, buddy. Come on in. Enter your code, scan your face, the lid pops open and grab your shit. Thank you. And then on to the next one. And it can do multiple packages, multiple deliveries simultaneously. So it carries more than a human can carry on their bike or on their scooter or what have you. So it can be deliver, 4 customers in one route, so to speak. So that's when you combine the two of those, that's the inevitable future. Like in the very near future, like we're not talking 5 years. We're talking like 1 or 2 years. And that's why the guerrilla investors know this. They know that because the costs are going to drop. Their costs drop quite significantly when they switch over to fully automated systems. So the next one up is a B2B commerce and financing startup raises what? They raised $200 million, led by Tiger Global at a $3 billion valuation. Austin-based company called Found, which offers app-based weight loss services with a telehealth component, emerges from stealth with $24 million. Patreon's back in the news. After raising $155 million in April, Patreon plans to invest in original programming by podcasters, video game live streamers, YouTubers, and major celebrities. SoftBank says that Alphabet's Loon, which was their balloon Wi-Fi project that didn't really work out, has transferred about 200 patents to SoftBank. Google says it also handed over patents to a partner called Raven Industries. So Google's getting out of the balloon Wi-Fi game, and they've sold the patents to SoftBank. Israel-based Speed Data, which is developing custom chips for data analytics processing, emerges from stealth with $55 million. General Motors announces Ultifi, a software platform for its cars that will enable OTA over-the-air updates, in-car subscription services, and more, rolling out in 2023. Amazon settles with 2 former employee activists, Emily Cunningham and Maren Costa, over accusations it illegally fired them for organizing. How much did they get? Oh boy. How much did they get? What did they? And here's a photo of them. It's in the New York Times. I'm going to tweet it out right now. How much did they get? We could do Tech News Jeopardy. How much did these 2 disgruntled Amazon employees who they claim they got fired for trying to unionize Amazon, and now Amazon settled with them. How much money did they get in the settlement? I bet it's not disclosed. I will bet anything that as part of the settlement, Amazon says you cannot reveal, because if it turns out it's a lot of money, then every Amazon employee is going to say, what? I'm going to start trying to create a union right now. Please fire my ass. So I can get some of that juicy Amazon money. So Amazon has settled with 2 of its most prominent internal critics, staving off public hearing over accusations that the company illegally fired the pair. Lawyers for the parties told an administrative judge on Wednesday. The former employees, Emily Cunningham and Maren Costa, said in a statement that Amazon would be required to pay their back wages and post a notice to all its tech and warehouse workers that nationwide that Amazon can't fire workers for organizing and exercising their rights. They called the settlement a win for protecting workers' rights. The pair have said they were fired last year because they publicly pushed the company to reduce its impact on climate change and address concerns about its warehouse workers. Amazon has maintained that the former employees repeatedly broke internal policies. By the way, companies might intentionally create policies they know you can't keep so that they can conveniently fire your dumbass at will. Make sense?
It's if they only got back wages, it's not actually a win.
That's true, but we haven't finished the article, so we don't know. And I agree. It sounds like that might be the case, in which case Amazon's lawyers are better than I thought. An Amazon spokesperson, Jose Negrete, said on Wednesday, "We have reached a mutual agreement that resolves the legal issues in the case and welcome the resolution of this matter." That sounds like Amazon won this one. The settlement was reached at a high wire moment for Amazon, which has pledged to be Earth's best employer and is looking in a tight labor market to hire 40,000 corporate and tech workers and 125,000 warehouse workers in the United States. In 2018, Ms. Costa and Ms. Cunningham, who worked as designers at Amazon Seattle headquarters, were part of a small group of employees who publicly pushed the company to do more to address climate impact. They turned their efforts into an organization, Amazon Employees for Climate Justice, and helped get more than 8,700 Amazon colleagues to support its efforts. And that scared the shit out of Amazon, because now that could be a force to unionize. Because you've got 8,700 Amazon colleagues all collectively communicating in some kind of capacity, that could turn into a union very quickly. You got to knock that shit off, even though it's for a good reason. You're trying to work together to for climate justice. Yes, of course, but you've organized, and that's what we're worried about, because you're one email away from the early stages of unionizing. So we can't risk that you might get the idea to unionize. So over time, Ms. Cunningham and Ms. Costa broadened their protests after Amazon told them they had violated its external communications policy by speaking publicly about business. Their group organized 400 employees to also speak out, purposely violating the policy to make a point. Well, that's now you're just a petulant child at that point. At the start of the pandemic, they announced their internal event for warehouse workers to speak to tech employees about their workplace safety conditions, which they know they can't do. You're encouraging people to break their own policies. This is really stupid strategy right here. Soon after, Amazon fired both women. Yep, because you broke policies. And you know you did. And that's really stupid, to knowingly break policies that they now gives them the legal right to fire you. You have to you need to, if you're going to do hijinks like this with a company that has really good lawyers, you have to imagine you're in the court case after the fact. Imagine you're standing before the judge when you're sitting at Subway sandwiches with your co-conspirators and you're cooking up your strategy and your scheme and your tactics for how to take down the man. Imagine there's the actual judges with you there at Subway sandwiches. And imagine how you're going to have to comply with the law in your scheme to take down the man. Because when part of your strategy is to flagrantly violate the company policies, which give the company the full, clear right to terminate your dumbass, the judge is going to say, what the fuck did you expect was going to happen? And that's why they got no settlement. These ladies could have got a whole bunch of money had they come up with a way to antagonize their boss. I'm not saying you should ever do this, but if you're going to do it in a smart way. Don't leave empty-handed, as they apparently have done now. So soon after, Amazon fired both women. Senator Elizabeth Warren, Democrats of Massachusetts, wrote the Amazon expressing concerns over potential retaliation, and Tim Bray, an internet pioneer and former vice president at Amazon's cloud computing group, resigned in protest. This spring, lawyers with the National Labor Relations Board said they had found merit in Ms. Costa and Ms. Cunningham's accusations that they were fired in retaliation for their organizing. Yes, but they stupidly, intentionally, knowingly broke policies, which gave Amazon the right to fire them. So anyway, the agency's Seattle office then brought a case against Amazon, saying the company enforced its facially neutral external communications and solicitation policies selectively and disparately in order to restrict employees from engaging in protected concerted activities. The hearing was scheduled to start Tuesday morning, but was delayed as the parties worked out a settlement. The case is one of many tangles the company has had with the labor board since the start of the pandemic. Most visibly, in August, a hearing officer of the NLRB recommended that the agency throw out a union election at the Amazon warehouse in Bessemer, Alabama, finding that Amazon's conduct interfered with the labor. We covered all of that. And it's the end of the article. There's nothing there. Whew, doesn't say.
Tom,
Yeah.
if I can just do a shout out,
Yeah.
Tim Beret
Yeah.
is the co-founder with John Bozanek of the XML standard, and he was a contributor to the XML health record standard that I co-led. He is a good guy, and so his resignation in protest is a powerful statement by an incredibly ethical guy.
Yeah. There was a separate article about him today as well. And now is he the one that came out today and said that Amazon AWS pricing is egregious or something like that?
I didn't see that.
Yeah.
He might have.
Yeah. He's now, I believe, at Oracle. Anyway, the next article is from
Tyler,
Yes.
Can I share an article?
Yeah, どうぞ.
ありがとう. Okay, just to share this, Resilient Health, a St. Louis-based concierge primary care practice that uses connected digital devices and an advanced video platform to bring doctors remotely to its cloud clinics last month announced it has closed its oversubscribed $2.5 million seed funding. And the seed funding was led by Unseen Capital with participation from Texas, Headwater VC, the Council, and the Living Fund. So this startup is founded by our Dr. Danish and his co-founder, Jeff Gamble. And Resilient Health bridges the convenience of telehealth with the broad scope of in-person care by offering cloud clinics where families can get virtual access to their doctor as well as physical exams, labs, and imaging. And Resilient plans to use this funding to expand its engineering and software development teams and roll out cloud clinics at the St. Louis area. On this note, tomorrow, 1.5 hours before the start of this Tech News Around session, Dr. Danish will be joining us for today's startup shows at 5:30 a.m. Pacific time to share his entrepreneurship and startup journey. So if you are up early, please do join us. Thank you.
Okay. Let's see. You're just refreshing to see if Apple Pay, visually impaired users, Intel and Bell, Facebook announces Twitch, Apple shares the top paid. Interesting. Apple, for the first time, shares the top paid podcast subscriptions and free channels globally, counting devices that played at least 1 second of an episode. So now you can see who are really the top podcasts globally. That's kind of cool. And that's your big articles for today. And now we get into the tweets that everyone's been very patiently waiting for. So the first tweet is from Neta from CNBC that Tesla's CEO Elon Musk said the U.S. government should steer clear of trying to regulate crypto market, where he spoke at the CodeCon conference in Beverly Hills. And then Willie in the audience sends in this one from Science Focus and the headline says, why does China want to build a kilometer-long spacecraft in outer space, floating in the orbit? And is it even possible? Buoyed on by its recent successful moon missions, China has launched a 5-year study to investigate the possibility of building this tremendously audacious, massive space station. Looks like something out of a sci-fi movie. So I just tweeted that so you can see that. And the question that the article asks is, why do they want to build it? I think the journalists themselves don't know the answer. I don't think anyone really knows the answer. I think they want to own space. I think they see space as the next frontier.
You know what China's answer always is? It's because they can.
And
my question,
yeah,
why doesn't the U.S. build its own station? Does anyone know? Why does it have this international participation, which is great, but we should be we should do like China does and have our own station. And I've never understood why.
Well, when you work together, you go far, and US can do that.
It's really expensive to build. I think what was happening at the time was, remember, they were starting to decommission NASA, so there wasn't a lot of public will to build an international space station. And there was one that was Russian, but it was not going to last. So what they did is form this joint alliance, and it's partly so that everybody offsets the cost, and then it was partly a way for everyone to join resources together, because this way, all the research that's done, a lot of it is like, issues in space for periods of time, and then there's a lot of work that's done on particular like medical issues and things like that. And in this way, it was a sort of a non-political way to get all the research that's being done around the world collected in one pool. So it's cost plus better research that way. That was the theory behind it. And then the space station would be allowed to, and pieces of it would be allowed to go from any area that the partners had. So like any country, and land in any country, like the astronauts and stuff could land where it was convenient, as opposed to making sure that it was in international waters or, somewhere over the US or whatever member nation. So there's a lot of efficiency that's in that.
Tyler, it would be good to get Cami to bring in the chief scientist of NASA
Yeah.
to talk about, and Cami knows him well.
Yeah, she could do a side room or bring him in tech news, whatever. It'd be great. Indeed. Okay, next up is from Evan from the Daily Mail. Biden could fine firms up to $700,000 if they fail to mandate vaccines. The increased fines on employees could run as high as $70,000 for serious infractions and $700,000 for willful repeated violations. Next one, also from Evan, that it's official. Scientists synthesized starch from CO2 in a first. A team from the Chinese Academy of Sciences claims to have developed the first technology for converting carbon dioxide, CO2, into starch more efficiently than plants. That's kind of miraculous. Kind of hard to beat nature in this game. They've been doing it for a while. Keeping the world fed is not an easy task. In fact, it causes immense environmental damage due to the massive use of land, water, fertilizers, pesticides, and fuel. Like making rice, for example. People in Asia there's this thing called rice that most Americans are not familiar with, and the people in Asia love this stuff. They eat it almost every day, and I mean, really, almost every day. Anyway, it's comes from a plant. It's called a rice plant. And it's very, very labor intensive. It takes a lot of water, and a whole lot of water, and sun, and labor, and work, and fertilizers, and pesticides, and fuel, and processing, and all that fun stuff. So, what if you could just make it from carbon dioxide directly, which is what the plants use to make it? So that's what they've done, apparently, from being used in everything from bread to paper. From bread to paper, starch has secured place in this list, yet we rely on plants to manufacture starch, which is rather inefficient. For a more sustainable approach, a team at the Chinese Academy of Sciences has designed what they say is the first method to turn carbon dioxide into starch more efficiently than plants do, according to the press release. This is a significant breakthrough since it has been difficult to accelerate photosynthesis in plants or create starch artificially in the past. While scientists were successful at making starch from plant-derived cellulose or from sucrose by using enzymes, using carbon dioxide hasn't been possible until now. The novel technique reported in the study published in Science uses chemical catalysts and a carefully selected combination of natural and engineered enzymes to convert CO2 to starch 8.5 times more efficiently than corn plants. The hybrid solution involves the carbon dioxide first being reduced to methanol with the help of an organic catalyst. The methanol is then treated with engineered enzymes which convert it to sugar units, which are then converted into polymeric starch. The complete process consists of only 11 core reactions and has greater efficiency than corn. The resulting synthetic starch, according to the research behind it, has the same structure as real starch and could be made into significantly less space. Here's the quote: "If the overall cost of the process can be reduced to a level economically comparable with agricultural planting in the future, it is expected to save more than 90% of the cultivated land and freshwater resources," explains a microbiologist at the Tianjin Institute of Industrial Biotechnology and one of the authors of the study.
Tyler, since this is tech news,
Yeah.
you recall the story you broke, 4 or 5 months ago, where Taiwan shut down rice production because it was competing for water with
the
chip
factories, the chips,
manufacturers.
TSMC, 90% less water because you're not growing a plant. You're just doing it synthetically. It's kind of, I mean, you can think of it how like there's synthetic drugs now, where they've synthesized some plant-based drugs. What they're synthesizing, it's kind of like synthetic. They figured out how to make starch in a lab without plants. It's fantastic.
This is what Eli does on his kind of macroalgae construction based on photo biofactory. But this particular article, I think, is talking about starch, but he's kind of working on capturing CO2 and producing. Sorry, my dog is making some noise, but is producing macroalgae based on capturing CO2.
Okay, next one.
Wait, does the article talk about environmental impact on that? Because I mean, that's actually that would be great because that will remove some of the CO2, right?
I guess that too. Yeah. No, it just mentions that you don't need any land because you're not growing plants, and you don't need 90% less water than plant. Because you're not growing the plant to make it. Then the next one, also from Evan.
Hey Tyler,
yes.
before you leave the last one,
Mm-hmm.
one of the things about synthetic food that we need to pay close attention to is our evolution and our genome is entirely evolved around natural food sources. And so, for example, one of the big problems with white rice historically is that it eliminated a lot of the vitamins we rely on, like thiamine, that had to be added back into the rice. So as we get into more and more synthetic foods, we need to be very mindful that our genes evolve not around monotypic chemicals, but around an array of chemicals that are not only absorbed together, but often interact in the body in ways that we don't yet fully understand. So while I applaud the sequestration of carbon dioxide and the reduction of land and water use, we need to be very mindful of the consequences of not replicating the nutritional sources that actually condition the evolution of our genes.
Okay, here we go. Chinese scientists eye hypersonic weapon able to fry telecom systems in 10 seconds, according to China's South China Morning Post. Chinese scientists working on a hypersonic weapon able to fry telecom systems in 10 seconds. Traveling at 6 times the speed of sound, evading radars along the way, the proposed weapon would be able to strike targets 3,000 kilometers away. Intense electromagnetic pulse, EMPs, or microwaves produced upon explosion would be able to burn out key electronic devices within a 2-kilometer range. So this is basically, they're creating their own little, electronic, like solar flares, essentially, or electronic storms, which we're expecting to have a natural one before long that will wipe out all of these anyways. But I guess you could make your own weaponized version of it, is the idea as well. It's well known that perhaps in our lifetimes, our satellite systems will get wiped out by a large solar event and electromagnetic event. And why not make
there's actually
go
ahead.
Why not make a controlled, weaponized version of that as well? It's kind of brilliant.
One of those was reportedly secretly tested in the atmosphere over South Africa decades ago.
It says, defeat any army without a fight and without casualties. If a new type of hypersonic weapon proposed by a team of rocket scientists in China becomes a reality, designed to generate intense electromagnetic pulse capable of wiping out communications and power supply lines, the weapon would have a range of 3,000 kilometers, about the distance from China's east coast to Guam. Cruising at 6 times the speed of sound, it would cover the distance in 25 minutes. Unlike ballistic missiles, it would stay within the Earth's atmosphere to dodge space-based early warning systems while using active stealth technology to avoid detection by radars on the ground, according to the team of researchers at the China Academy of Launch Vehicle Technology in Beijing. And when the weapon explodes over the target area, no lives will be at risk. Rather, the strong electromagnetic waves produced would cause the effective burnout of key electronic devices in the target information network within a range of 2 kilometers. Engineering scientist Sun Zheng and his co-researchers at the China Academy said in a paper published this month in a domestic journal titled Tactical Missile Technology. Early EMP weapons required a nuclear warhead to generate the pulse energy, and this restricted their applications, whereas the hypersonic EMP weapon would use chemical explosives instead, the team said. The chemical explosion would compress an electrically charged magnet known as a flux compression generator, which could convert the shock energy to short but extremely powerful bursts of microwaves. A non-nuclear EMP bomb is known to be heavy and bulky because it needs to carry a large quantity of batteries to store enough electricity to trigger the explosion. This kind of bomb is usually airdropped from a plane. In 2017, the U.S. had considered using a large cruise missile with an EMP warhead to paralyze North Korea's nuclear facilities, according to the U.S. Air Force researchers. However, that plan was not implemented, in part due to the fears that North Korea would be able to detect the incoming missile and launch a retaliatory strike, possibly nuclear. Sun and his co-workers say a major advantage of the new weapon is that the enemy would not know it was on the way. When an object travels through the air at hypervelocity, air molecules are ionized by the heat and form a thin layer of plasma over the object's surface. The plasma cloak can absorb radar signals, but not all. To achieve all-around stealthiness, the weapon's design by the team would convert the environmental heat to electricity and use the electricity to power numerous plasma generators located in different areas of the body of the missile. Really interesting.
Hey, Tyler.
Yeah.
The physics of this has been well understood for many, many decades. The only reason it hasn't been deployed in active warfare is because the source up until this article has been a nuclear detonation in the atmosphere, which would be frowned upon by the international community, obviously. The fact that they found a non-nuclear way to cause this to happen almost guarantees that it will be deployed in serious conflict, because it is known to be very effective. And given that that is more of an eventuality, that it doesn't require the release of lots of radioactive waste into the atmosphere, there's going to be a whole new industry around building Faraday cages around everything. I haven't seen companies in that space yet, but if anybody knows of one, I would love to know about it, because I think it's going to become an imperative globally pretty soon to implement those Faraday cages.
Does anybody know if, and I don't know if this is linked at all, but were they testing this over, like in Cuba? Is it possible, because it affects your nerves? The EMPs affect nerves.
Oh, you're talking
possible?
You're talking about the Havana syndrome?
Yeah, Havana syndrome, because they didn't know what it was or anything. Is it possible that this is actually, like, they were doing controlled tests on humans without their consent, or they were doing tests and they happened to be around there but targeted? Is it? I don't know.
Highly improbable, because you unless there's some technology we don't know about, focusing the EMP into a very small space would be incredibly difficult, as opposed to the maximum dispersion of the EMP pulse that results from an atmospheric detonation.
But doesn't it show that perhaps they're playing with this technology even, and because we've been speculating as to whether it's the Russians or another bad actor. Isn't it more likely that it might be the Chinese as a result of this new what Tyler was just reading?
I'm sorry, say that again, Maurice.
I guess this is a question for John of whether it's more likely because of the article you just read, sort of to piggyback on the previous question, that in fact the Havana syndrome is something that is more likely to have been a Chinese experimental weapon, maybe not related to this, but in the general area because it's a similar technology, or is it just totally
No,
not?
yeah, it's
Probably a very different physics and technology for Havana syndrome than this.
Yeah, EMP bombs are a well understood thing, and that's as John said, you can't really control and target it to a specific individual, as is happening with Havana syndrome, for example. Most recently, with members of the vice president entourage to Southeast Asia, where people are being targeted very on a spearfishing pinpoint accuracy, which you wouldn't do that with an EMP bomb. We don't have a way to harness the energy in such a precise pinpoint fashion.
I think it's not like just the bomb itself. It's like, are they testing, controlled EMP bursts, things like that. That's all it was. But if it's not likely, it's not likely.
Yeah, it's not so you can think of them like normal bombs, and bombs aren't that easy to control. That's kind of the maybe apt metaphor. It seems to be more of a microwave, focused microwave technology that's behind the.
That's the leading hypothesis, is that it's focused microwave for Havana syndrome, and they're both in the EM, but very different spectrums and very different abilities to collimate and focus. So the analogy is correct in terms of using EM force to cause the intended outcome, evil as they both are, but the underlying spectrum is very different.
Okay, what do we got here? Oh, so somebody's kind of speaking of China. Anonymous, the hacktivist group, has uploaded the Taiwanese flag on the Chinese government website.
Oh, that's just funny.
I'm sure they're enjoying that joke over there in Beijing, and they've got a great sense of humor over there, by the way. So this one from Netta about the Korea Times. It says, tired of bustling big city life, urbanites explore rural lifestyles. Back to basics, lifestyle choices are changing since the pandemic. It talks about a 28-year-old yoga instructor in Seoul leaves the city for a house located near some mountain in South Korea, about 140 kilometers out of the city. And they're kind of trend spotting this as a trend, which it certainly is. Getting back to nature. Get a farm. Grow your own food. You'll love it. You're not going to have a job in the future anyways. Might as well start growing your own food. Get a couple chickens, maybe a few lambs. Learn how to be self-sufficient again, especially if you're not going to be employable when all the automation comes in. Don't wait on the government to have your energy and your food and your housing and everything else. You might go ahead and start now. Go start looking for a little piece of land. You don't need a lot, just a little bit, just on the outside of town. The first one's out, you'll have no problems at all. You just don't want to be the last one in line to try and jump that train. So Netta sends in this one that Google Translate marriage ends in disappointment for a Turkish man. This sounds promising. A marriage that was made possible with Google Translate, that already sounds a little like a Seinfeld episode that never managed to make it out. But a marriage that was made possible with Google Translate between a Turkish man and an Indonesian woman ended in disappointment for the Turkish man. A love story between a Turkish man and an Indonesian woman that began with the help of Google Translate ended in misery. Ahmet Kara, who lives in the Pamukkale district of the Aegean province of Denizli, met Nel Mataw. Holy my God, this is a difficult one. Nel Mawadi, who was living in a village in Indonesia's Riau. They met on social media in 2018. The duo communicated with the help of Google Translate for 7 months, which was followed by Kara heading to Indonesia to get married. Kara told a news agency that he took out a loan to make the trip possible. Kara and Mawadi then returned to Turkey in April 2019 and got married. The couple communicated with the help of Google Translate throughout their marriage. Mawadi returned to Indonesia 4 months after getting married, but didn't divorce the man. Kara, the man, said that his wife wanted to go back because her son was in a car accident. He noted that he paid for her flight. I drove her to the airport. We continued talking on social media for a while, but then she told me that she doesn't want me. She blocked me from all social media platforms. I haven't been able to reach her since September 2019, Kara says. I loved her. I don't know what happened. I'm still paying my debt to the bank. I was let down, he added. Saying that he wants to divorce Mawadi to get married to his current fiancée, Kara noted that he filed applications to various courts but couldn't get a result. Is that the end of the story? I guess it is. That is the end of that very sad little story. But you can see the couple on their wedding day in their very colorful outfits. But perhaps there's a lesson there somewhere. Don't get married through Google Translator. So the next one is from Damoulaire, that vertical farms are growing more and more vegetables in urban areas. They don't need soil or sunlight. This is true. This is far easier than you think it is. And it's awesome. And you should look on YouTube for vertical farms and aquaponic farms. Google that word, aquaponic farms. And you'll learn how you can grow all the vegetables you need in a basement with no windows, with an incredibly small amount of water and liquid nutrients. You can grow a goddamn farm on a wall with plastic plumbing pipes. It's really simple and very cheap, and you can grow all your food even in a windowless basement. It works. So just tweeted that out. This is a wild one from Ars Technica. A film studio is suing a VPN network for $10 million. Why is a film studio suing a no logs VPN for $10 million? This is going to be a really interesting case because, as I'll read here, dozens of movie production companies have sued Liquid VPN this year over the VPN provider's marketing efforts that could be perceived as promoting piracy. These companies, which are now seeking $10 million in damages, claim that the no-log policy of Liquid VPN is not a valid excuse, as the VPN provider actively chose to not keep logs. And because Liquid VPN's lawyers failed to show up in court, the plaintiffs are pushing a motion for a default judgment to be granted. At what point does a netizen's right to privacy and anonymity cease in the crux of a lawsuit brought forth against Liquid VPN? Liquid VPN is a no-log VPN provider that, over the course of its business activities, has been observed to almost encourage online piracy. Many internet users who rely on technologies like logless VPNs and Tor may do so to remain untraceable for reasons ranging from safeguarding their privacy to protecting someone, to browsing the dark web, to participating in activities deemed unquestionable legally or questionable legally or ethically. As such, much like internet service providers, VPN companies are seen as neutral service agents and may benefit from the safe harbor provisions of the U.S. copyright law called the Digital Millennium Copyright Act, or the DMCA. Online service providers can claim safe harbor protections under the DMCA, provided that they timely block access to the infringing materials reported to them by copyright holders. But Liquid VPN's business model was a fierce one, thriving on the fence of the law. It's in web pages seen by Ars Technica. The VPN company boasted itself as the best VPN for torrenting. Oh, you idiots. That would also let you unblock ISP banned streams. No wonder you're getting your asses sued. Otherwise restricted due to copyright takedown requests. Furthermore, Liquid VPN customers were really in for a treat with high-quality popcorn time streams. Oh, Jesus. Liquid VPN, you were begging for this. Dear God, you're promoting popcorn time on your free... Oh, Jesus. Okay, so this VPN is a bunch of idiots and is rightfully being sued. I take it all back. A normal logless VPN who doesn't try to promote that using them to take copyright content, it's an interesting issue that can movie studios claim that logless VPNs are, causing them financial harm and whatnot? That would be a really interesting suit. This is a totally different suit. This is a bunch of idiots almost basically promoting piracy. They just happen to be a logless VPN. So what a weird case. MIT to test 3D printing and mobile delivery of prosthesis in Sierra Leone. A new robotics center at MIT plans to pilot a mobile imaging and delivery system of prosthetic limb services for disabled people in Sierra Leone. Very cool. Google says that Bing's most popular search term, their competitor Bing, Google has a monopoly in the search engine space. I don't know if you've noticed this, but they don't want you to know that, and they don't agree to that because legally that would get them in a lot of deep shit very quickly. So Google's lawyers have now told the EU courts this week that people who go on Bing, the most searched... Oh, this is a Tech News Jeopardy question. What is the most searched for word on Bing's search engine, according to Google?
Boobs.
Good guess, actually.
Google.
Dan Malaire wins. Well done. So the answer is Google, and the reason is because they don't want to use Bing. They didn't mean to go to Bing. The laptop didn't give them a choice. It sent them to Bing, and so they typed in Google to get to Google. And Google's saying this to the EU court in evidence of the fact that people go to Google by choice, that it's not a monopoly. They're not forcing people to use Google. People are willingly going to Google, is their point. And they can't help that everyone's choosing them. There's no force. No one's being sent there by force, is Google's point. And they evidence this by showing that the way that they prove this is that the number one search term in Bing is Google. That's an interesting court case. The first artificial kidney that would free people from dialysis and transplants runs on blood pressure. The first artificial... That's it. That's the headline. And it's this. People have been waiting for this for a very long time. If this works as promised, this would be just unbelievable. So just tweeted that one out. China plans to deploy digital satellite TVs in 200 Togolese villages, and Chinese provision of digital TVs in Togo is part of an Africa-wide program. 10,000 villages in 20 countries are expected to receive Chinese digital TV kits. Why is China giving away a whole bunch of digital TVs around Africa?
It's for the G talks.
Indeed it is.
To be followed by digital yuan.
That too. Job searches for no vaccine requirement surge as mandates abound. So people who don't want to get vaccines, who want to work, are searching for jobs that don't require vaccines. Those are surging. So so what they're saying is basically all of the open jobs are requiring vaccines. Help wanted, unvaccinated need not apply. More job postings require potential recruits to get jabs, so all the unvaccinated have not a lot of options. So if you are desperate for finding team members, employees, maybe not require vaccines, and then you can have a whole lot of people that are searching for exactly that.
So does that mean I can put vaccinated on my CV?
I'm not sure.
It was a joke.
Yeah. Wells Fargo analyst says developers are the new bankers and predicts job cuts among banks. Developers are the new bankers. Apps are the new banks. They're called neobanks, and the traditional banks' days are numbered. They're dinosaurs now. Welcome to the Dinosaur Club. Your days are numbered. And Apple employees are back in the news from Vox. The real stakes of Apple's battle over remote work. 3 days in the office is unacceptable. Sign my petition. Inside the unexpected fight that's driving the most valuable company in the world about remote work. For the past several months, a fight has been brewing inside of Apple headquarters, the world's most profitable company, about the fundamental aspect of its business, whether its corporate employees must return to the office. Apple expects employees to return to their desks at least 3 days a week when its offices reopen, and although the COVID-19 Delta variant has made it unclear exactly when that will be, Apple's normally heads-down employees are pushing back in an unexpected way. They've created 2 petitions demanding the option to work remotely full-time that have collected over 1,000 signatures combined. A handful of people have resigned over the matter, and some employees have begun speaking out publicly to criticize management's stance. Apple employees who don't want to return to the office are challenging the popular management philosophy at many Silicon Valley companies that serendipitous in-person collaboration is necessary to fuel innovation. And so this is very old news, like almost 2 months old, and we covered this when Tim Cook wrote the email to the team members saying you can come back to work 3 days a week, Monday, Wednesday, Thursday, as I recall. And then you have 2 days to do whatever you want. And Sid, who joins us in the audience most days, who works at Apple, confirmed that he got that email the day that it came out. And the next day, they did this petition and got these signatures. That was 2 months ago. So Vox, you're a little behind the ball on this one. This is a very old story. And now you're interviewing disgruntled employees. Yet again, that good old-fashioned journalistic trick. Well, I'm sure there's some angry employees. Let's go interview them and make big tech look bad and take everything out of context. And Apple's enslaving people now. I'm sure that's the headline tomorrow. So, yeah, it's an old story. Sorry, Vox. Honda joins a $400 billion gold rush to monetize your smart car data. Automakers eager to turn big data into valuable info. And indeed, your car, your smart car, like your smartphone, is going to be a treasure trove of data. So cars can build ad networks now. It's going to get really interesting. And CNN reports that Canada and China exchange in a heated spat at the UN. A heated back and forth between China and Canada kicked off in the final hours of the UN General Assembly this week with the Canadian foreign minister. And the 2 Canadians held for nearly 3 years in China are back. Jesus, CNN every time. So the Canadian foreign minister, Marc Garneau, suggested that the Canadian citizens, Michael Spavor and Michael Korvig, who were imprisoned by the Chinese government in retaliation for China's treatment of Huawei executive Meng Wanzhou, on Friday, Meng was allowed to leave Canada after she reached a deal with the U.S. Department of Justice over allegations of fraud for which she was detained in December of 2018. Here's the quote. Canada observed the rule of law and 2 Canadian citizens paid a heavy price for this commitment. We continue to oppose the way these 2 people were treated, the foreign minister said in front of the UN. In keeping Meng under house arrest, Ottawa had, quote unquote, applied both Canadian and international law in response to a request for extradition of the Chinese citizens, Garneau said, which he's correct to say. That's what happened. Later in the evening, a representative from China delegation to the UN General Assembly exercised the country's right of reply, accusing the United States and Canada of keeping Meng under house arrest arbitrarily and without legal reasons. Here's the quote. The true purpose was to surprise Chinese high-tech enterprises and companies as a way to hold back Chinese advancement in terms of science and technology. The U.S. and Canada's action is very typical of arbitrary decisions, says Liu Yang, a counselor in China's UN mission. The diplomatic clash comes less than a week after Canada and China announced the release of the 3 high-profile detainees who had been at the center of growing tensions between the 2 countries for almost 3 years. Shortly after Meng's release, Ottawa announced 2 Canadian nationals had been freed by the Chinese government. The 2 men had been held for more than 1,000 days by Beijing after being arrested on charges of espionage, shortly after Meng was detained. The Chinese government had repeatedly insisted that both the Canadian nationals were not being held in response to Meng's arrest, saying the charges against them were ironclad. Meng's case is completely different from that of Corvid and Spavor, Chinese Representative Liu said on Monday, insisting the 2 Canadians had been engaged in acts that endanger Chinese security. Liu also repeated an assertion made earlier by the state media that the pair confessed to their crimes, although the Canadian government has not indicated Corvid or Spavors confessed to any offenses. We hope that Canada can face up to the facts squarely, correct their mistakes, and draw lessons from what happened so that they do not make further mistakes, Liu warned. Canada responded with a delegation representative saying Meng had been treated with judicial independence and rule of law, and noting she spoke outside the Vancouver courthouse to thank the court. The Canadian citizens who were held in China did not benefit from a similar degree of transparency, respect, due process, or judicial independence, the Canadian representative said. And we will continue to speak out against arbitrary detention in state-to-state relations. Thank you. Liu responded one more time, saying, we cannot accept what he said. Facts cannot be denied and laws cannot be affronted. We believe that history will have the final judgment, he said. Okay, so that's basically, if we translate that into street talk, it's like shit went down at the UN, and basically the foreign minister said, what's up? You did me wrong, dog. And China said, I ain't having that, yo. And, shit got real over there at the UN General Assembly. There was a front. Talk to the hand, homeboy, is basically what he said. So, yeah, I just tweeted that one out. And then Willie in the audience found this one, that Volvo reveals their prototype autonomous truck for North America. This prototype is the first to be designed and manufactured to operate within their new autonomous Aurora system. Aurora bought Uber's self-driving truck business in late 2020. I recall for $350 million or $500 million, something in that ballpark. It seems like a low amount, but anyway, Volvo's now doing autonomous trucking in North America. Here it comes. All that stuff you're buying online, it's making its way to the factories autonomously. Last but not least, a Danish artist. Everyone sent this story, and my God, this one set the record for the most tweets we ever got. A Danish artist was given $84,000 by a museum to use in its work, and he produced 2 pieces for the museum by handing them blank canvases and titling it, Take the Money and Run. And so now those pieces are hanging in the galleries and people are enjoying them as he's made a mockery of the gallery who paid him. But it seems like they might have the last laugh. People seem to be enjoying the pieces and turning up to see them. So But now the gallery's saying they're going to enforce their contract with him that he has to make 2 real works and whatnot. So let's see if he can make an NFT with nothing in it. Would be the next logical step. Make an NFT of a non-artwork as an artwork. I'm sure someone's working on that as we speak. So that does take us to the top of the hour, everybody.